Okay, here we are. Is volume working? It's working. I'm streaming. I'm live. What is up? Here we are, another week, another live hack. I'm excited for this one. For those of you that don't know, kind of just doing weekly live coding and splitting it into workshops on one week and live hacks on the other week. Live hacks, they're 2 hours. This is spontaneous, it's in the moment. Not sure if things are going to work out always, but that's kind of the fun of it. For the live hacks and the workshops, they're more streamlined. Things will work out. So that's kind of the weekly content I'm doing right now. So yes, very cool. And in this live hack, out of necessity for me building the second PlebDev course, we're going to be working on a project that will be in the second PlebDev course. And so, the kind of PlebDevs thing for me, it started with the first course that we made. We released it on Udemy. We released it on a Lightning platform called Immortalize. And the PlebDev course was just, the goal was to make a zero to coding kind of course, front end only, and make it focused on building Lightning apps, building Bitcoin apps. And so we started with that. We did front end only. It was a cool course. A lot of people took it. A lot of people liked it. But for me, as soon as I made the course, I was like, we have to make a second one. There has to be a back-end course. It has to be just as good or better. And we need to show the other side of the coin because, even if you're working at a job as a front-end developer, you're likely going to be doing a lot of back-end stuff or thinking about back-end stuff. And also, if you want to just build your own Lightning app, like the full shebang, you need to have those basic back-end skills. So this is the goal of the second course, which I'm building right now. And so the project we going to be doing today is one that we started on the live hack 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that. And this is called Pleb Post. And so you can find this project at my GitHub here, Austin Kelsey /Pleb Post. And yes, this is where we currently are with this. So if you weren't around for the last live hack I did on this project, we started from absolute zero, started with a completely empty repository, and we built it up with the goal of making a simple app that's, you can think of it as kind of a Stacker News type of clone. Basically, you just have users, and those users are given a wallet when they sign up through LN Bits, and then those users can make posts, and the users can upvote each other's posts. That's kind of going to be the simple full stack app. So it's the minimum amount of functionality to where it's a project to build, it's something to show off, but at the same time, it can be like a template that you can work off of and expand the features, because there's a lot of things we won't be doing here that you might want to do in the full thing. And so yes, it would be good if you want to follow along with this live hack. It'd be good to go ahead and clone down this repo. And before we get into any of the coding today, I'm going to walk through the project again from scratch. I'm going to walk through our tech stack, and we're actually going to go a little bit deeper on some of what's happening, mainly with authentication. So yeah, I think that's kind of a lot of the background, a lot of the overview. So yes, this project, it's going to be part of the backend course. And let me talk about the backend course a little bit. My goal is I wanted to show the basics of backend, where you could kind of kick off your backend journey and take it deeper. And I wanted to show it from two different angles. One angle being lower level, more manual, seeing how people do it from scratch, basically. So that's not going to be the Pleb Post project. So this is going to be a project where we're going to build a simple backend for the Pleb wallet from the first course. And we're going to be going lower level with RPC calls, talking to a Lightning node. We're going to be doing authentication ourselves. Users are going to type in passwords, and we're going to hash them and create tokens so that they can stay logged in when they're on their browser. It's going to be very lower level, but a lot more simple. And then there's going to be this project, Pleb Post. It will be the other project. And with this project, it's going to be more high level. It's going to be more like, what if you're a pleb trying to build your full stack project and you want to use the most leverage? You want to use the best tools to kind of save you time, save you effort and energy. So there's certain things you don't have to think about. And one of those big things is authentication and the user sign-up flow. And this can be something that is a real pain. And this is actually where we got stuck on the last live stream. We got our very basic authentication working, but I was trying to tie it together with creating a wallet and saving it to the database, and kind of got mixed up there. And so on my own, this week, you see this commit that I committed 1 hour ago. I kind of cleaned up this authentication flow. I got it working. I'm like, hey, let's not do this live. Let's just start with our authentication working and then try and understand what we're doing, the time that we're saving, and why we're using this particular stack. So yeah, I think that's a bit of the background there. So where do we want to start? Let's start by talking about the tech stack here. So this is a Next.js app, a Next.js project. We'll probably be looking in the docs here a little bit later, but Next.js is a framework built on React that allows you to have a server-side environment inside of your React app. So what does that mean? Well, in the world of development, the world of app development, there's always kind of a client side and there's a server side. There's the client, there's, me, I'm a user, I'm on my laptop, I go to your website, I'm requesting your website from your server. And your server is this environment that's most likely hosted somewhere. It's better at storing secrets. It has access to all the kind of dangerous data that you don't want people to have access to. So there are different considerations, these two different environments. What Next.js lets us do is it lets us have a single project, a single repository that has both the front end client-side environment and the server-side environment both at the same time. So we can work with them both at the same time. And at a basic level, what that means, the real big effect that has is here's our project, and in Next.js, by default, you're always given this pages folder. And this is where you can define, the different routes, the different pages that will exist. So you can have a forms page, and, it would be, plebpost.com/forms, and you would just put, a new file, forms.js in here, and that would create a new page. So that's kind of how the routing, the pages work here. But then inside of pages, we have this API folder. And this is what's so cool about Next.js is that we can create our API right inside of our front end, which normally you have to have a separate code base, a separate environment for doing that. And so here's my users API folder. And these are just basic API methods, like get users, connecting the database. I'm grabbing all the users with a basic query and I'm returning it. And so yeah, you can do all of your API calls, all of the creation of your API inside of Next.js. That's just a huge win. That's really nice. And so yes, we're using Next.js. That's a big part of our tech stack. If you're jumping over from React, it's not too hard to get started, but there are some little quirks with Next.js that are different. Really, the quirks, they're mostly features, but it can take a little bit of time to kind of get used to it from your regular React app. But we'll get into some of those features today, some of those basic features. And so I'm also using MongoDB on the back end, and I can show you my entire implementation really easily. We created a new Mongo instance, Mongo database here on the Atlas Cloud Mongo instance. If you just Google Mongo, it'll take you to this website, and you'll sign in and you'll be able to make a project, and inside of your project you'll be able to have databases. And if you choose serverless databases and if you choose the free backup method, then it'll be totally free. So I have both these databases here. They're completely free for me. They're always online. It's very nice. So you set it up, and when you go to connect, it will give you, like if I say connect to your application, it will give me this private string that is my database URL. And then when I'm in the app, all I'm doing right here is I have an environment variables folder, which I'm going to try not to show this week. So this is where all my secrets are, my URLs, stuff like that. There's a lot of values in here right now, but I'm grabbing that same URL from there, and I'm just running this Mongo connect, and I'm kind of exporting this as a function. And so that's the connection to Mongo. And then how are we making the data? That's what this posts and users are. We have schema. We define a schema using the Mongoose library. And this is kind of the simplest way to set up a structure for your database, what the different items you're going to be storing look like. So like here we define a new post schema. We're saving a title, a description, and an author. And we're telling it that, this is a type of string. It's not a number, it's not a Boolean. And we're saying, required. And you can do other stuff. You can add methods on here, like for our author, for example, like, actually, no, we don't want to change that. Let's change on users. Here's our users one, looking similar. So like maybe I want to say like unique true. Okay. I want to say that I don't want to have two different users with the same username in my database. I'm not going to allow that. So we can just add this option on here. And yeah, the Mongoose documentation, it walks through all this stuff, but what we're doing here is pretty simple. Just kind of setting aside data here. We're generating a profile photo on the creation of a new user. This is a little bit fancy. You don't need to have this, but we have it, whatever. And then we're taking this schema, we're setting it to JSON, we're getting rid of some properties we don't need. These are just extra options. You don't necessarily have to do it. And then we're exporting it in this way where, we're exporting it as either models.user or model with user. And this is just a trick to kind of make this database method available anywhere. And then, okay, we create a user schema. I have my user here, and then you can see what we're doing with it. Right? I import user, and then like for my get users, I'm just saying, user.find, and it's automatically kind of pulling everyone, all of the users in my database. So that is a little bit about our Mongo implementation right there. Really simple right now, our Next.js app. So let's talk about like high level. How is this app going to work? Why is it cool? I think it's cool. So I created this little flowchart to, hopefully this isn't confusing. Hopefully this will make things actually more clear. But kind of wanted to talk about like the structure of our app and some of the trade-offs that we're making here with the structure. So we are using LNbits. We're using LNbits for all of our wallet management. I've got my LNbits instance open right here. And LNbits is running on top of Voltage. I set up a basic Voltage node. It's on mainnet, it's working, it's live right now. And when you do this, you can go to the dashboards and you can add LNbits right here. And mine is loading and it's showing me that it's running. I have a URL for it. And yeah, that's what this is. So, LNbits is kind of just our wallet system, our wrapper for our Lightning node that makes it easy to just manage wallets, which can be a pain if you're doing it at the lowest level. So here we are using one tool, LNbits, which saves us time, it saves us effort, it saves us a lot of thinking, but it also limits us, right? So this is a trade-off. So back to the rest of the structure of the app, we got LNbits is talking back and forth with our Voltage node. We'll talk about this part in a second. And then we have our API and our MongoDB, which we kind of already showed. Mongo, it's just our database, it's hosted, it stores these objects of this certain structure. And the API is what the client will communicate through in order to add a new users, get users, whatever it is. Like the API is the one calling the methods for Mongo, and the client is calling the API. So that's kind of how that relationship works. And so we're using Mongo because it's easy, because it's quick. We're using Next.js with its API serverless functionality because it's easy, because it's quick. And then that's where we go on to authentication. and I'm using a library called NextAuth, which is created by the Next.js people. So makes sense to use in a Next.js project. NextAuth is an authentication library. NextAuth. Yep, and they've got pretty good documentation here. Basically, it involves you adding a custom file, and this custom file can then communicate this authentication process. So what is actually happening here in the authentication process? So instead of having users create passwords for us or create usernames or emails for us, that's a lot to handle. It's a lot to worry about. If we use an authentication library instead, we can have users authenticate for our app using another app, and we're going to be using GitHub for that. If we go to NextAuth here, if we go to providers, yeah, these are all different providers that you can authenticate through. I mean, Twitch, Twitter, Reddit, they've got all of these here. So there's a lot of different ways. Once you have this set up, you can just plug in more and more providers, more and more ways for your users to authenticate through you. And so when the user is authenticating through a provider, what that means is that our app is asking them, like, hey, are you logged into GitHub? And they're like, yeah, I am. And then we're like, okay, cool. Then they hand us over this session info is what it's called, which is basically just some simple info about their GitHub account. And we can then go take that info, create a wallet for them, and then save them to the database. And that's kind of the trick of how our authentication is working here. So, I have GitHub right here as kind of a database where NextAuth is the wrapper, where our client is communicating through NextAuth, and we're getting the actual credentials through GitHub. And so that's kind of how that works. And a deeper look at the authentication flow of what's actually happening here. Basically, we have when we request the user session, the user's info, we send over GitHub OAuth credentials. So this is where this kind of starts. And so what are these OAuth credentials? You can create them on your GitHub account. For each provider, by the way, like we looked at all these providers, you'll have to have data about how to request to them. So like if we look at auth here, NextAuth.js, like this is my current setup for authentication. You see I have a providers array right here. I have a GitHub provider, and I'm just passing him two pieces of information here, kind of a client ID or an app ID, and then a client secret. And so this allows me to let any user authenticate through me with GitHub, that is. So how did I create that? Anyone can do this. You go to GitHub, you go to your settings right here, scroll down to the bottom to developer settings, OAuth apps, and then you can create a new OAuth app, and when you do, you'll be given a secret, which is only shown to you once, and then your client ID. And so, yeah, and so also in the last live stream I did when we were starting up this project, kind of building the shell of it, I walked through this as well, a little bit slower. I'm kind of just glazing over this right now just so we have a quick review. So we send, for NextAuth, we send these OAuth credentials, and NextAuth verifies them, and then GitHub verifies them, and they're like, okay, cool. And then GitHub will send a request for the user to authenticate through GitHub. And once that finishes, once the user says login or just confirms that they're cool with our app getting information from their GitHub, then we go down into the NextAuth flow. NextAuth then is like, oh, cool. Okay, the user logged in. I have the user's info now. So I'm going to pass this thing called a session back. And a session is a cookie. I mean, if you've heard of cookies on the browser, there's cookies, there's sessions, there's JSON web tokens. These are kind of three ways that authentication information is saved right on your browser. So the session is passed back, and it's meant for us to just save it into the browser for the user. So if the user exits and they come back, then they're still logged in. Or if they're moving through pages, in our app, then they stay logged in between those pages, so it's persistent, it's sitting in their browser. But we don't just pass back the session. That would be nice and simple. This is where we got stuck last time is, well, I need to take this session information because this is the first time I'm getting the user's username at all. And I can't just save this into my database or just pass it back to the client. I first need to create a wallet. So we create an LNBits wallet based off of the session info. And then with the session info and the wallet together, we have a complete user that we can save to our Mongo database. So this is the authentication flow that is currently in place for Pleb Post, and it works. It's kind of like, part of me thinks this is simple, part of me thinks it's like too complicated, but either way, it's really nice to we're not handling any user credentials, and we're able to just log them in and create a wallet for them just like that. And so let's go through this process right here. And then, I'll show it to you live, and then we'll walk through the code, and then we'll probably pick up and just, start coding. So I can run my project here with yarn dev. It'll run on local host. There's a little noise going on in the background that we just finished our Pleb Lab workshop here just like a few minutes ago, so workshops galore. Okay, I'm gonna refresh this now. Let me make sure that I don't have any cookies saved. Okay, cool. And so this is our UI at the moment, not super pretty. Most of the effort has gone into the authentication flow, making sure that everything is working in the background. But let's see this in action. So first, let me show you my database here, and I'll show you that there are currently no users that exist in the database. The database is totally empty in regards to users. So I go here, our users collection is empty. And then if I go to LNBits with my user manager extension, I refresh this, and there are no users. So let's create one. I'm going to click login. Now, what had just happened is like that request was sent. Yes, we just sent this, and then boom, in a second, now we have this request for us to authenticate. So let's do that. Sign in with GitHub, and I'm already signed in, so it should go right back. Cool. So loading tells me authenticated, and then it tells me I have a balance of 0. Nice. So if I go back here to our database, we see that there is a user here. They're saved. We've got their username. We've got this info about their wallet, which is required to make any calls kind of later on in the app. And then if I go to LNBits here, we'll see that we created a wallet for the user as well. Very nice. So let's walk through this code. So this is where I had gotten stuck last time, kind of writing this from scratch in the moment. So I went back on my own time, and I was like, okay, let's fix this and have this just working so that we can start the next live hack with a little more momentum. And so what is happening here? Basically, there are 3 things in our process, like I talked about. Down here, we need to first get the session, and then create a wallet from the session, and then we need to save that to our database. So that is exactly what I'm doing here. So this is the next auth file. This is what you add into your project to use the next auth library. And I'm using this callback right here for our session. Really, if all I needed was the user's name from GitHub, like in a theoretical world, if that's all we needed, my code could look like this. Like, it could be completely empty. I wouldn't even need a callback, actually. And all I would do is we just pass back the session. But we actually need this callback because we need to, in the middle of this part where NextAuth is handing our session to our client, we need to kind of get in the middle of that and create the wallet and do a few other actions. So that's what this callbacks object lets us do on the auth options for NextAuth. We go in here and then we define the session callback. This will automatically pick up the session as we receive it from GitHub. So that's when this function is invoked. This function is invoked at the point in time when GitHub has successfully passed that info to our project. And so first thing I'm doing, I'm just checking if the name's not there, then we can't do anything with this. I'm just saying return session. So basically get out of this function, get out of here. Otherwise, the first thing I do is I remove any spaces from the username because that could just cause issue if you're saving that to databases and making API calls with it. I check if the user exists. And if they do exist, then I say this session object that GitHub created for us, I'm going to update it with the user object I already have saved in my database. Because that has all the wallet data, has everything I want on it. So we're kind of just looking here, if the user exists, give me that user, make the session that our client has to work with, make it the object from my own database, and then return it. Okay, cool. And so from this point, if it exists, we exit out of this function and we're done. Otherwise, if the user doesn't exist, we need to make them a wallet. So I made this function where we pass in the user, the session username. It gives them a new wallet, and that returns onto this variable wallet. And then with that, I can create the user object that we're going to save in our database. And so here we take the username from the session, and then all this other data comes from wallet, from this new wallet we created. Very cool. And at this point, I then create a user. And this is what kind of saves this user object to the database. And if it is saved successfully, then the user is created. And I'm like, cool, take that new created user, save it to the session, just like we did up here, and return the session. And then boom, we're out of the function. So this is that authentication process. These functions, I've got this function create user, give new user wallet, and user exists. Originally, like one of the reasons I got stuck is I was trying to do all of this inside of this callback. So what I decided to do to make it a little more simple is I moved these functions somewhere else and kind of just separated it out so it was easier to break down the problem and all of that. So if we go into flows inside of source and flows, I have a file here onboarding for kind of the onboarding flow. And that's where each of these functions exist. User exists here. We're just looking in our database like, hey, find a user with this username, and then return it or return false. Give user new wallet. We call our LNbits instance with our LNbits user manager URL. That's what this guy is right here, this really long URL. And yeah, we just kind of pass the data that this function receives, which is only username. We name a wallet and we get that wallet data and we return it. Return the new wallet. And then the create user function, yeah, just takes in a user object, saves it to the database. Very simple. So that is the flow that I prepared beforehand. It's a lot when I just walk through it raw like this, but it's so convenient now because now this just works. This just, no matter what user I have, they log in for the first time in 2 clicks, they have a wallet, I have all of the data I need to create invoices for them and do all of that stuff in the app. So it's a really nice thing to get in place, a nice foundation that we can build the rest of this app on. Okay, yeah, and we see here in the console, I console logged, the user created, and we see all this data, all the wallet ID, wallet admin, all of that stuff being saved here. So pretty cool. So now we can keep building on the app. I've got this very simple app that basically just lets you log in and log out right now and create yourself as a user, and that's about it. And it shows your balance, which is 0, of course. So let's actually send a balance to our wallet here. I can click on this wallet that we created. I'll open it up in a new tab, and I'll create an invoice. And let's just get 100 sats. copy this invoice, and I'll go over to my trusty Stacker News wallet, and I will send from here. Withdraw, paste our invoice, max fee 10, that should be fine. Invoice already confirmed. Oh no, did it like auto paste or something? Interesting. Let's just create another one. Okay. Finding a route. Okay, here we go. 100 sats with 2 sats and routing fees. Cool. So now if I go back to my wallet here, it shows 100 sats. And if I go here, I need to refresh the page. We will show 100 sats. Cool. So we are correctly picking up that information. And I'll just show you our index.js. This is like the main entry point. We have this use session stuff that we get from the nextauth library, nextauth/React. We get a sign in and sign out function that's super easy to call, and then we have use session. In use session, we can kind of get our session under the data property here, and then get the status of like if we're authenticated or not. And you can see that I'm returning the status right here, /balance, and then the user balance. And here's just a simple use effect where I'm saying, okay, if we have the session with all of our user data on it, I can then go take the user object on that session and take their invoice key, and I can call my lnbits instance, and I can get their balance and set it to this piece of state, user balance, set user balance, and then I'm just returning it down here. So that's kind of the simple functionality going on. So cool. And now what I want to do is we're going to make a little bit of UI, and then we're going to try and get posts working, the ability to create posts, because that doesn't exist at the moment. So let's get started on that. I'm going to be using a library for components right here that's called Chakra, chakraui.com. And this is just an easy way for me to install a library, and they're going to give me nice functional components like buttons that I can use, so we don't have to write too much CSS. So I'll go to components here, and actually first I need to install the library. So we're using yarn. So just copy this. React emotion. I don't know if we need these other libraries, but screw it. We'll just install them. Ooh, it added a bunch of crap. There we go. So I'm going to install. And then the first thing we're gonna be grabbing from this library is some buttons, because these are some ugly ass buttons. So I'm gonna go to components. I'll find buttons will be somewhere here. Import button and button group. Cool, so I'll just get their regular old button. I'll just copy this import here. Library is still installing, and we're gonna use this in our index component. I don't need button group actually, just need button. And I'm gonna change these buttons right here. And we're just gonna make it one button. So button, this will be, we're gonna say if status is not equal to, what is our authenticated? Authenticated. So if this is true, then we want to show some text that says log in. Otherwise, we want to show text that says log out. Cool. And let's look at the basic styling on here. You've got a blue button, you've got sizes. Let's just do color scheme blue. That should be fine. Oops. Okay. And let's start this up now. Library is installed. Let's just see if this is rendering. Loading. Getting something here. Oh, I think this is because we didn't log out. It's trying to use our old session info. That's fine. So this doesn't quite look right, this button. Color scheme blue. So button from Chakra UI React. We must have some styles that are maybe overriding this. So let's go look in our styles. There will be globals, gross. Just look for anything that selects a button. Description, code, grid, card. Let's look in our console here. Oops. See what the styles are. It's telling us there's a Chakra button, type button, class. Interesting. Let's see if we get rid of this. Nothing. Okay. I guess we're gonna have ugly buttons for right now. Something must be overriding this. Okay, but whatever. We can have just gray buttons for right now, and that will be fine. But now I wanna put this kind of stuff in the header. So we should get into the layout feature of Next.js. So we want to have a layout that's kind of persistent across all of our different pages, and Next.js allows you to do that in kind of a cool way. And for this layout, I just really want to have a header. And this header can have the status of if we're logged in or not. It can have the login button, maybe our balance, and then maybe like a menu button or something like that. So how will we do that? If we go into Next.js here, go into the docs, we can see layouts. So we've got two really simple examples here, and this is all we need. We create a layout component. That's what it's telling us here. And this is like a custom kind of component that will become our layout. And you can see here they have like a nav bar and a footer. And the layout expects children, and you just kind of wrap your layout and then return the children in the middle. That's almost always how it happens. So this is like the layout component, and then you use the layout component in the _app.js component. Ooh. And you then wrap it, and this wraps your entire app. So that's kind of how this process is. This code looked really weird to me at first because it's pretty abstracted, I guess, but it's really simple how it works. So let's create a layout component. And then we'll create a header. Yeah, that's good. So we'll get out of our pages and go back into source for components, and we're gonna do folders and then files for all of these. So layout folder, and in here, new file, layout.js. We'll just paste this. We're not gonna have I guess we will have a nav bar. This will be .. And then another new folder for a nav bar. And a file in here, navbar.js. Okay. And the reason we're doing separate folders here is because to do CSS, Next.js uses CSS modules by default, which is just a way of scoping your CSS to be used for particular components. All that really means for us in practice is that in each of these folders, I can have, like right here, something styles.module.css. So this is what all of my style files are going to be called, and they're just going to be living in the folder that they're operating within. So it's kind of a modular type of approach with that. So we'll have a CSS file set aside, and I'm going to get from Chakra that just gave us our ugly button. I'm going to get some kind of a menu button. Let's go to components. Menu. And they'll always have a bunch of different examples, these different drop downs we can do. I just want to see if we have one with like a menu icon. Yes, like this. Cool. And we can change icon, hamburger icon. We probably won't have that. So let's just take this example right here. And we'll use it to our needs. Keep opening this. Okay, so do we need the session? Yeah, we will need the session info as well. Let's say const navbar equals, that's fine, we're gonna replace all of this. And I'm gonna have an outer div. This is gonna be kind of a flex box that we're gonna put everything in a row in. And then we'll paste this menu crap we have here, and make sure I get the imports, menu button, menu list, menu item. Menu button, menu list. What is that? Menu item. Okay, cool. And instead of saying actions, it's just gonna say menu. And we'll have like, we're not gonna build these yet, but we'll have kind of fake links. This one will be like your profile. This will be users. Let's actually switch these, and this will be posts. So this is kind of how user can navigate for the most part. Get rid of these. Okay, that should be fine for now. Div, we're gonna import our CSS. So import dot slash module.css. We're getting our div, a class name, we'll just call it navbar. And go to our CSS, and we'll create a new navbar class. And I just want to say display flex, and I want to say flex direction is a row. And we'll just put a little bit of, let's just leave it like that for now. So there's that. We've got our navbar. Let me make sure this is exported. Export default navbar. And then in our layout, we'll have navbar. And that is it. Navbar will sit on top of children. Oh, another thing with navbar. We need this whole component. We need it to sit at the top of our screen. So we'll say position absolute, and then we can use top. So it's going to be 0 away from the top, and then left 0, and right 0. And we want this just so it's like, you know, whatever this component is, it's stuck to the top, it's stuck all the way to the left, and stuck all the way to the right at the same time. So kind of a basic nav bar, sticky nav bar setup. So got nav bar here, nav bars in layout. Now we can wrap our whole entire app with our layout. So I can just copy this and go into the underscore app.js page. And we already have stuff in here, our session provider. We're also wrapping our entire app with that. So let me just take the code from here. /components. This should be source /components /layout /layout. And then, yeah, I think we can just wrap all of this in the layout. And close it up, save that, get rid of this. Okay. Doesn't know where navbar is. So that would be in layout. Is it navbar /navbar? Yeah, because we have the folder and the file we're going to now. So that is set up. Let's see what that looks like. Use session must be wrapped in a session provider. Okay, is our layout wrapped in the session provider? Is not. So we can switch these places. Okay, so now we have access to the session. It's wrapping absolutely everything. Button is not defined. Because I'm saying as button, so let's just do button here. And we just won't have a right icon. Okay, cool. Now we have the ugliest menu ever up here. Let's actually look. I think something is wrong with my import. I've done another project with this stack, and I'm just gonna go find it. PlebDev, I believe, is what it is. Let's see how I'm importing Chakra here. If I just go to like questions. From @ChakraUI React. @ChakraUI React. Yeah, that is exactly what I'm doing here. Let's see what our package is here that we're using. ChakraUI React. We have the emotion, styled. Did that actually get installed to our project here? Looks like it. Yeah. Home module, globals. Let's just see what happens if I absolutely delete these styling files or comment them out. Let's start with globals, just comment, save, and then home, comment, oops. Oh, it doesn't work. Let's just delete it and save. Still doesn't have the styles we were asking for there. Let's check. Let's add the color scheme back to this button. Color scheme equals blue, and let's just say size equals whatever it's supposed to be on here. Size extra small, small, let's say medium. Nope, doesn't give our button styles. Okay, well, that's okay. We'll get the layout going at least. just undo this. Save, save. Okay, so there's our menu there. So we have in navbar, we're saying this is a row. Let's put some padding left and padding right. Padding left, 2%. Let's actually just do padding, 2% all around, so that our menu button won't just be like sticking up there like that. Oh, didn't like that. Margin, 2%. Oh, this is because the position absolute. So we can just do, we can do this like 10, 10, and 5. So there's a little bit of space. What is happening here? Fast name navbar. Okay, whatever. We'll have to, next time I should check out the styling library before I just implement it. But let's actually get to the functionality, because that's what I want to focus on here. Our menu button exists. That's all well and good. So we'll have that on one side, and I want to have a login button and the username on the other side. And so we could do this. We're doing flex direction row. We can do justify content, yes, space between. Let's actually do space evenly though. And let's put, just in a p tag here, let's put our status. So this will be all the way over to the right. I know it's stacked on top of each other. So this should be a row. Class navbar. I think my absolute positioning is messing this up. What if we just do this? Flex direction row, display flex. Slash styles.module.css. Seems like some of the CSS is not working here. So that is a little bit gross. Session layout. It has to do with these global styles. Okay, let's just continue onward. Why is styling always, it's always a time sink. It's always such an ordeal. Okay, let's go back in app, just put our default styles in there. And this is something I'll have to look into in the near future. So we'll go ahead and put, just for the sake of at least ordering things so that we can get ready to style it, we'll put this button right here into the header. Give the user an option to log in. So navbar, status, and then there'll be a button here to log in. And then say on click. Let's see what it's generated for us here. Yeah, this is what we want. We want to say if we are not authenticated, make it the sign in method. If we are authenticated, make it the sign out method. So it's kind of nice. We can just have one button here that will just switch depending on if the user is authenticated. And then, yeah, let's Let's also show the session.username, and let's show the, yeah, that should be fine. I guess we could get the balance in this component as well, instead of like the main one. Let's do that. So I'll just take this user balance state and this use effect, which we use to get the user's balance, and we'll move this into the nav bar. Kind of just separate our concerns here. I'll need to add set state or use state. Okay. And then we're saying if the session exists, make this API call, we set the balance, and let's show the balance. Balance, user balance. Okay, use effect. User balance is not defined. This isn't our index page. So we're still trying to put it, so yeah, screw it, this thing is gonna be empty for the moment. And then now we will have all this stuff in our header. If I click login, we'll sign in through GitHub. And let's see, Axios is not defined. Okay. Need that in our nav bar as well. Axios from Axios. Okay, ugliest nav bar in the world, but it shows we're authenticated. We see 100 right here. Where's my name? Saying session.user.username, is it maybe? There we go. Nice. So we can now log in, and now I can log out. Session is destroyed, I'm unauthenticated, I log back in, and here we are. Back with my balance. Cool. So now I want to list out any posts we have, and then create a form so user can create posts. So that'll kind of be the next chunk. And then after that, hopefully add on the tipping functionality. So the first thing we want to do is be able to get the posts that exist. So let's go to API. We have posts.js here. It looks like we're just saying posts.find. Okay, so I think this endpoint already exists. So let's make a new folder, posts, and I'll make a new file called postslist.js. And React, import Axios, and I'll need that, Axios, and then posts list. We can export default this, and then here we'll do the logic to grab our posts and list them out. But before we do that, I am going to just take a very quick bathroom break here. So this will just be like 1 to 2 minutes, and I'll be right back and we'll continue going with this. So yeah, just 1 sec. Okay, we are back. And I just remembered something while while I was peeing. I remembered something. I know why these chakra components aren't working. We need a chakra wrapper. This is my other app, like example that I was looking at. And you can see here we're importing this chakra provider. This is our _app JS page. And then we need to wrap our app with it. So, wow. Glad I remembered that. That was really frustrating. So let's do this. We'll put it at this level, import, and then chakra provider. Let's move this down here. Boom. Okay, now will our buttons not be ugly? Let's let me see. Navbar. I'm using menu button. Let's add the color scheme now. Color scheme. Say blue. Let's see what we get. Okay, there we go. Now that is working. I wonder if our CSS will stop being broken now. Well, no, because it's supposed to be a row. And I think let's just make these spans. I think they won't stack if they're spans. Span. Just so we can get some kind of an idea of how this is going to look. Okay, so that looks better. We've got navbar here. Row, let's throw width 100%, and this should hopefully balance this out a little bit. Space evenly, space between. Let's see what we got here. Div, navbar. Yeah, it is not even recognizing my styles here. I wonder if that's because of this. /styles.module.css. How'd I do it here? Sadly, this is the reality of coding. Sometimes you just spend a lot of time looking at your old work to figure out what you did. So styles.module.css. Import as styles. Is that really what we are missing here? Import styles, and then what we would say class name equals styles.navbar. Okay, and there we go. Wow. Cool. So that is now working. What else is broken here now? Our whole regular styles are broken. That's fine. I'll just go into globals. Yeah, we still are using globals here. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just keep it white for right now. But I want to make this space evenly. Let's actually make it space between. Just kind of want to separate these two sides, but I'll put these in a separate div. So these will kind of sit on their own. I'll throw the button in here as well. Oops. Save that. And then for this div, we'll call this name styles dot, what do we want to call this? User info, I guess. Go to here, dot user info. And we just want to do padding 2%, something like that. that. That's a bad idea. Let's do something like this, but we'll say space evenly inside of this little div right here. With 60% of our nav bar. Okay, looks a little bit better here. Okay, so that will be our nav bar for the time being, and let's just give this a background color, something dark background. Is that straight up black? That is straight up black. What do they have here originally? I can't see the colors here. Yeah, these are like configured colors. Okay, screw it. Let's just say background color is dark gray or something. Dark gray, or maybe just gray. Okay. Does this work at all? Am I doing this the wrong way? Green. I think I am. Okay, there we go. Dark gray. Here we are. And we'll give this whole thing some padding as well. Okay, that will do fine for right now. Let's, I lied. Let's swap where this button is real quick. I think that'll look slightly better. Just an idea for like us once we're ready to like take this layout and style it and do a bunch of stuff with it. So cool. Now let's continue on with functionality. Post list, let's list out our posts. So we're going to create a new component. We did that, posts and post list. Let's go to it. So I'm going to get use effect and use state. I know I'll be using those. State, use effect. And I'm going to be first getting the posts. So const posts set posts equals use state of an empty array. Yeah, I guess we might need our session here. And then use effect. No, we don't need any of this session info actually yet. We just want to do axios.get posts. How does this look? So it should be API is always at the beginning of our API calls, and then it goes into API/posts. So that should be correct. And yeah, it's just a GET request. We set post to res.data. And let's add a return now. Return, and let's make a div with class name equal to posts list. That's cool. We need a style module though, so let's get that. So styles.module.css. And then inside here I can say import styles from our module. And then this will be styles.post list. That's what I'll call it. Silver div, and then yep, it knows what I want to do. Post.map, and let's just see what it generates here. We'll probably just keep this for just a first rough draft. Should be post.description. What does our post look like? We can see that in our models here. We've got title, description, author. So that's cool. So title, description. Put a span here for post.author. And then close up this div. So we're returning, and then I need to close this up. And a closing parenthesis. Okay. So this is our posts list now. Let's throw this into index. We're exporting it. Cool. Let's import posts list from here, and let's just throw it right inside of main. Post and posts list. Okay, let's see how this looks. Posts, okay, and our post list is like way down here. What is this? This is our main class. And our posts list, okay. So let's fix these styles a little bit for posts list. Dot posts list. So how do we want this to look? We want it to be a column. Flex direction column. We want it to have like a 60% width, I think, across the screen. And let's put some padding in here as well. Just kind of fill it out. And let's see how this looks. Looks about the same. Posts list. Did I name this correctly? There we go. Plural. Okay. And we're doing width 60%, so that's kind of throwing it off. So I want to do margin 0 auto to center it again. It's not going to work. Let's try this. Margin, instead of doing padding, let's do margin 1% auto. Okay, so the object is centered, but the text needs to be centered, and I'll do text align center. And cool, that fixes it. And then we have each post. We should put some kind of styling in here, styles.post, just so we can kind of see it. So we'll give it a border radius, 10 pixels, kind of rounded. Border 1 pixel solid black. Background color, we'll do our dark gray. Just keep things simple and functional for now. Okay, cool. Test title, testing a post, Austin. Okay, and so this is like my one kind of fake post I have saved in my database here, you can see. And just title, description, author. Okay, so we are listing it out here, so that's kind of in place in a very basic sense. But now I want to make a real post. So we need a posts form to do that. So that will kind of be the next action. But first we want to review our posts schema, because I think there's something wrong here. So right now, my goal feature for this live hack, like where I wanted to get, is to the point to where one user can initiate a tip action to another user, and this will happen on a post. So I need to update this post to have a tips amount. We can call it, let's call it tips. And tips will be type number. It'll default to 0. That is correct. Copilot coming in clutch, and this will now be our post schema. This is our new schema. This is what will be expected. in order to save into our database. But of course, like with this tips field, since we have a default value here, we don't actually need to create it as we're posting it, because it'll be created for us automatically. So that's kind of what happens when you have a default value. So default to 0, so that's our post. Let's delete our example post here because this now does not fit our schema. And we want to get to the point where we can create a post ourselves. So we have posts list in here. Let's make post form now. Post form.js. And yes, I'm going to use another chakra component for this. So I'm going to use, we will need to use session, that's true. Importing from chakra, I think it's form control. Yeah, let's just look at their forms component here on the website. Overlay, data display, navigation, form, okay. Form control, this one I'm going to be using at the top level. Form label, input. Okay, so then they have an input component, and that's what we will want. Okay. Input, and I guess a form label. And what else? We'll be posting a form from here. That means we'll be using API, so we'll be using Axios. And yeah, probably use state and use effect as well. Our trusty hooks. Okay, cool. So const post form. Let's export it. So now we can start adding this in. Yeah, Copilot wants to generate all of this for me. We'll write it ourselves. I don't even know if that's correct. It's too much to read through. We're gonna have some state set aside for form data. So form data, set form data equals use state, and it'll be title, description. We don't need to add tips, but we need to add author. And the author is going to be the username. Okay, and that's our form data. This is what we'll be filling out and then posting to the API. Get session data, const. How did I get this up here? Data session status, okay. Yeah, there's kind of a specific way they show you to destructure this use session data, like right here. So just want to keep that consistent. Okay, and then we'll return. And let's just do a regular form at the top level here. And I'm going to have a const handle submit. This will be a function, and we'll just leave it empty for right now. And then we'll say on submit, handle submit. Cool, so that will be kind of the basic wrapper for our form. We can add in form control here and then add in label, input, type text, name title. Data title, on change, set form data to whatever else is there, and then update the title. Okay, this looks correct about what I would want to do. And let's close up form control just right here. Oh, and we need to closing parentheses. Okay, so let's just see what this what this input looks like, and I want to just have a use effect to just test to see if anytime that form data is changing, I want to console log form data, just to show that we're changing it. Forms are one of those weird things. I've done it like a million times, but almost every time, like I kind of mess up the structure of it and need to go like look at an example or something. So let's just see if our example works here. And how are we going to show our form? Let's just do it on the home page here. Get rid of this. And let's have a button, maybe that reveals it. Button. I need to import button from Chakra. And we'll say session is true. I guess so. We want to make sure. I'm going to show my form. So I'm going to flip some state here to show my form. So let's make some state. Const show form, set show form will default to false. And I'll actually wrap, no. Add post on click. We will do a callback here to set show form. Needs to be capital F. We'll set it to what the opposite of show form is currently. So that way it'll just kind of flip back and forth, true or false, true, false. So that's all that this simple button will do. I'm gonna give it a color scheme of blue. And then here above the post list, I'm gonna say show form, then we'll show our post form. We need to import that, import post form. Okay, cool. Something's wrong in post form. Doesn't like our import of use session. Next auth. Oh, because I'm doing it from next auth client. It needs to be next auth React. Oops, those are little things. So let's just fix that. Post form React. Okay. So go to our console here. Add post, and our form shows. And we change it, and the title changes. Cool. So let's add the rest of our form here. So we can get right to the tipping part. I want to get there so bad. Okay, post form. We have our input for title. Let's have another form label. This will be description. Input should be a very similar thing. GitHub Copilot, saving me time. And then author, we don't need to put in author. We'll get that automatically from the session. Cool. So we set this form data, form on submit, and then I need a submit button. So bring in another button from Chakra, and button type submit. And then when we submit, we will handle submit, and to do that, what are we doing here? We're adding a post. So Axios post. This is going to localhost 3000 API/posts. And then we can pass in our data right here, which will be, I think we can just pass in the whole form data object. Form data. Don't want that because we want to do .then. Let's see. We want to refresh the page, I guess. But let's just console log the result here. And if there's an error, we'll console log the error. Cool. And then we can probably put a refresh function here to have the page refresh so our new post is there. Let's do this now. So I'm logged in as Austin Kelsey. I'm going to make a test post from form. Let's say testing. Oh, and this console log is still just firing off, so let's get rid of this. Okay. So let's try this, and this should console log a result. Okay, we got 500. No. Let's see if it gives us a good error here at all. Console log error. Oh, I need to submit. We need to prevent actually from immediately refreshing while we do handle submit. So to do that, we use this event.prevent default. Event.prevent default. I think that could have been it. Let's just see. Try this again. Post, test, submit. Okay, error. Let's look at it this time. Bad response, the request failed with something. Path author is required. Okay, so, oh, yes, I need to post the author along with this, of course. Some mistake. So let's do form data, and then author is session.user.username. That's what it'll be. Okay. Looks a little weird, but actually, let's do it this way. Let's just do title, description, and then author. Yeah. Alrighty. Post is still here. Let's try to submit that again. Success. Cool. Let's refresh the page and see if it's here. Here we go. Okay, and we are now creating posts. If we go to our database here, our post will have been saved. Awesome. And we have the author, description, title. We don't have tips though. Even though we added tips to our post schema here, we don't have tips. So I wonder if we just need to restart since we changed something in the server-side environment. I feel like we might need to restart this. So let's restart our project and just see if our tips gets added if we create another post. Small setback. Reload. I'm still logged in with my 100 sats. Test. I think that was a success again. Let's see what we have here now. Okay, here we go. Now we have tips. Yeah, so we just need to restart our app. Anytime we change something, database related, API related, sometimes you need to restart because we've got that server environment, we've got that client side environment, both in here. Cool. So now we're posting. Creating posts, we're listing out our posts. So let's get into this up-tipping action. We're gonna do this pretty manually and hopefully we can get this working in like 30 minutes here. First thing is we wanna add a tip button. I don't care what this looks like right now. I'm just gonna keep it really simple so we can get this working. So I'm just gonna import the button from Chalker UI React. I'll put it at the bottom here, except no, tip. So there will be a tip button, and when this is clicked, we will call something. What is that thing we're going to call? So okay, let's talk about this just for a second. So since going back to trade-offs, going back to high-level stuff here, like when we were talking about, you know, the structure of the app here, we're taking these few shortcuts, specifically with NextAuth and with LN-Bits. You know, I'm creating wallets for every user. It's pretty easy, but one of the limitations is I don't have all the features I have if I was running my own Lightning node and communicating with it at a low level. I have whatever LN-Bits offers me as an interface. So something LN-Bits does not have is keysend, at least from as far as I know. And keysend is this way on Lightning to where you can just kind of push a payment without the creation of an invoice. And you push it to someone else's Lightning node pub key. That's kind of what you need. But we don't have a Lightning node pub key. In fact, we're just communicating within our one Lightning node in our LN-Bits wallets. So we don't have access to that feature. Maybe in the future we could implement LN-URL pay. I'm not even going to try and do that, but that could be another way. But really what we need to do now is when the user hits this tip button, we need to create an invoice for one user and have the other user pay that invoice. And it needs to happen just in a quick second. So how are we going to do that? Let's figure it out. Let me turn this into a P. So this looks ugly because it's wrapping next to each other. Okay, that's fine. So when we click this button, there are 3 actions that needs to happen. We need to get the wallet information from this user, the author of this post. We need to get their wallet information. We need to use that to request an invoice or make an invoice for this user. And then for the person clicking the tip button, they then need to receive that invoice and instantly pay it. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do it in the most simple way I can think of, which is we have all this data available to us through the session and through other methods. So I'm going to create a new folder here in flows, and this is going to be our tipping flow. So I'm going to make a new file called tipping, and we're going to have our methods here to do these actions. So I don't load up my component with all this extra crap that it really doesn't need to know about. And so the first part here we're going to do is, let's see, invoice, pay invoice. Yeah, let's make a create invoice function. So we're going to need Axios for this, from Axios. And I'm going to export each one of these individually because they're going to be methods, functions we're going to import elsewhere. So this is going to be create invoice. It's going to be async. And let's see what it generates for us here. So this function will expect the entire user object. And so what do we need to create an invoice? I can see here, if we go into our LN-Bits, and we've got my wallet here. I'll open, oh, I already got this open in a new tab. So I can look in API info and I can see create an invoice. So if one were to create an invoice, they would need this key right here. What is this key? We can look this up manually. Let me go to my database, users, and looking for a key that ends with AF129, AF129. So this is our IN key, our invoice key. Okay, so this will be coming from the user, and this should come in the user object, which we'll pass in here, user.in key. And then we need to pass some kind of data in for this. So for creating an invoice, we'll say out false, we'll have an amount, a memo, unit, interesting. We'll just use the default unit. I think it'll be sats, webhook, internal. I think some of these are optional, so we'll probably just do out false and then an amount. And so memo, we'll just call this tip. generated all this for us, but it's not actually correct. Out is false, because we're going to be receiving payment, and then amount is going to be just 1. We're just going to make our tips default to 1. So we're going to create an invoice for 1 Satoshi, and we need to call, what URL are we going to call here? Let's see, from element bits. We're calling this URL API v1 payment. Cool. And then the key in our header is what will actually determine which this is for. User invoice key. So I'm just going to hard code this URL for now. I'm going to post a payment. We're posting the body. We're adding the header. And we're returning response.data. What do we expect to get back from this? Returns 201 created, payment hash, and payment request. So we want the payment request. So this will return response.data.payment request. Very cool. So this is our function to create an invoice. We'll have a function to pay an invoice. Looks correct. So for paying an invoice, we need the invoice that we're going to pay, and I want the whole session object. Why do I want the whole session object? Because the person paying the invoice is the one clicking on the tip button. So if they're the ones clicking on the tip button, that means we have their session with all of their wallet information kind of ready to go. So I'm going to assume we'll be able to have this session here so we can get that data. And let's see what it generates for us here, and then we'll refactor it. So to pay an invoice, do we use the invoice key still? Let's see what we use. This is create. If I go to pay an invoice, we're using a different key now. What is this one? F787. Ends in F787. So it's our admin key. That kind of makes sense. We need to use an admin key to pay, but only an invoice key to create an invoice. So that's fine. So I'll add admin key to this. What are we posting? Just the payment request. Let's see. So we're going to say out true, and then we're going to have bolt 11, and bolt 11 will be our invoice. Is what that looks like. Out true, and then bolt 11. It's going to be our invoice that we pass in. And are we still going to the payment endpoint? Yes, we are. Or wait, / payments. So what's supposed to be payments? / payments. Okay, yeah, good catch. Could have been bad. So this is payments, and this is payments. Okay. So we have the create an invoice, pay an invoice, and now we're going to have an actual function that kind of uses these to execute the full flow. So we'll call this const tip action. Tip action. And tip action, we're going to take in the username of the person who created the post, because that's all we have, because that's the only thing we have from them is their username on the post. So that's what we have from them, and then what we have for the user clicking the tip button is the session. So we'll take in the username and the session. So this is kind of data from both users from this exchange. Let's see what this generates for us. So we do want to check that the user exists. Let's just trash all of this. So let's see. So I'm going to say const response equals await Axios dot get. We're going to get the user first. And we'll put a variable in here. So it'll be HTTP localhost 3000 /users /username. Is that right? Pages, API, users /slug. And then our GET request here is get user by username. So this should work. Okay. So we get it, we try and get our response, and then from the response, that's when we can create the invoice. What is invoice expecting, or create invoice? They're just expecting the user that we get back. Cool. So let's do an if statement, if response.data, yeah. Then our invoice is going to be what comes from create invoice, and this will return just a payment request. So that's cool. Got the invoice, and then I can just say if invoice. I'll call this tip, const tip equals pay invoice. Yeah, let's console log tip, and then let's just say if tip. We'll just return true to show that it was a success. That way, all we need to really do is just like refresh the page, and we should see the difference. And that's my try block. Catch. Okay. So we get the user. If we have the user, we make them create an invoice. And then we have them pay the invoice. What is pay invoice expecting again? The invoice in the session. Cool. Okay, I think this flow should work. So now let's just test it out. We're gonna plug it in, and chances are it probably won't work, but at first, but we can kind of debug it and see what's going on. So the tip action is what I want in our post list. Import tip action from here, and then on click, callback function and tip action, and we're going to pass in post, what is it expecting? Username and then session. So we're going to pass in post.author, and then we're going to pass in our session, which should already be here. It's not here. Let's grab this from somewhere. Posts list. And you need to import use session. And session. Okay. So we call tip action on click, and let's just say if we're not authenticated, if ooh, this is true, or if it's us. That's what this is saying here. If session.user.username is equal to post.author. Okay, we'll do this condition, or if status is not equal authenticated. In that case, we want to show nothing. It'll be disabled. Else, it'll be active. Okay. And what do I need here? Expression expected. Oh no, okay. Let's do it this way. Wait, so this needs to be wrapped completely. Do I need to say return? have Copilot solve this. The status is unauthenticated. Disable the tip button. Okay. Ah, yeah, we can just add that condition in our tip there. So button, what's wrong with button here? Oh yeah, tip. Okay, tip action, except we're posting the author here first, and then we're posting the full session. Entire session. Okay, cool. So this is disabled if the status is not authenticated. Cool. So I'm authenticated. Damn. Okay, let's see if this works. So I need to have another user. That's another piece we need to have here. So close. I'm going to open up a new private window, and I have another GitHub account I can log in through. So let's do that. And we'll have this person create a new post. So log in, GitHub. This is my other user. Success. Create new wallet. We have 0 sats. If we go here to the user manager, we should see a second wallet. Okay. Now let's have this user create a post. Which one is it? It's this one. So let's add a post. My post stacker stack baby. Submit that. We're forgetting to refresh the page, but if we do, it should be here. Okay, cool. So now let's try, we have this post, Stacker Hacker has 0. Let's try and have my user tip them. Need to refresh on my side too. So let's tip, let's see what happens. Request failed with a 401. Okay, error occurred in create invoice, tip action. All right. Figured that could be the case. So let's break this down. Going back into tipping here. It's tip action. First, we just get this user at all. So let's console log response.data right here. And I'm just going to comment out the rest of this so we can kind of go through this flow step by step and see what exactly is breaking. So I'll try tip action again. Okay. I see here I'm getting a user back, but I'm getting him in a list. I bet this is what's happening. I'm getting this in a list. So I'm going to say const user equals response.data of 0, because we just want the first item. And then I can say if user, then we create an invoice with the user data, then if invoice. Okay, so let's console log invoice next, and we'll comment this out for the kind of the third part. Okay, tip, here's our invoice. We're really creating it. The final step, if invoice, initiate the pay invoice action. And then, yeah, we'll console log the tip. Tip. Okay. Let's see if this works. Tip. We got back a tip object. And what happens if I refresh? Do I have 99 sats? I have 99 sats. And Stacker Hacker has 1 sat. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there we go. That was pretty quick as well. Like the creation of an invoice, the paying of the invoice, like it's not like 2 seconds or something. It was definitely within a second. But damn, yeah, okay. Surprised we didn't run into any more trouble with that flow. So this is like the dumb ape way, I guess, of having a tipping action, but it works all the same. And yeah, that is really cool. We've got 8 minutes left. Perfect. So this does not look as good as I wanted it to look. That is for damn sure. But I'm glad got to this feature that I wanted to make sure worked. Let's just check our LNbits wallets here, like to see if. Look at Stacker Hacker. Should have one sat in there, yeah. And we see the list of all the invoices. Should be a few more here now. Yeah, tip. Beautiful. Okay, I want to fix some of these styles while I have like 3 minutes left. Margin, 1% auto. Oops. Make our posts look a little bit better. Oh no, that's terrible. What did we do? 100%. Okay, there we go. And then we can have the button here. Post form. Post list. So this is each post. We can put some space in the p tag here. So dot post. Anytime there's a p tag, we can just say margin. 2%. Just put some more spacing on this. Okay, there we go. And then the whole post, I want to add padding to fill it out a little bit better. Okay, there we go. Looking a little bit better. Our form pops up. Might as well not even have that there. What is that? Index. H1. Whatever. Okay. We didn't even get to our routes here. I guess these are kind of like to-dos for pages that we can make. But yes, this is this worked. This is like the most PlebDev full stack app here. A very simple database, very simple API, and we just created a new app where new users are created every time they log in. They're authenticated through GitHub. They get a new wallet, and we can start acting on that wallet immediately. Our database is holding on to all these posts, holding on to all these users. They can always return. We're saving the session into their browser so they stay logged in. There's a lot of front-end quirks here that aren't worked out with how it looks, how it functions, like refreshing the page after the data changes when we make a post or something like that. So that's a lot of the front-end work that still needs to be done here. But we got in there and did all of the dirty back-end work, all of the stuff that's normally not fun to do, and we got it working. So this is now an amazing template to build off of, and so I'm excited. This is obviously, for me, it's as far as I've gotten on this project, and so now I'm gonna go take this, maybe refactor, simplify some of the code. We're going to add some styles. Maybe I'll do that in a future live hack, kind of style it and make it look good. And then I'm going to templatize this, turn it into a project that we'll walk through in steps in the second PlebDev course. So exciting. I guess that is a good place to call it. We got to all the features we wanted to. Our authentication is still holding up. No new bugs we found or anything like that. So feeling like we're in a pretty good place here. Ran into some hiccups with the Chakra UI stuff. Remembering that we need to wrap our Chakra provider. We have our session provider. We have our layout that we added. So some Next.js stuff. But we got that working. And yeah, man, this is the most fun part of a project, when you get the authentication done, when you get some of the back end, the API stuff done, and it's all working. And then you're like, cool, now I'm in this front end. I get to just experience it and tinker with it and iterate on it. So that'll be the stage we're in for the next step, I suppose. But yeah, cool. thank you for joining another live hack. I hope this is useful for you all. For these weekly events now, like for the near future, I might just be working on the second course because I'm really trying to get it out in a decent time. So I'm rushing on it. Have very little time. So this is kind of way I can get two birds with one stone. But yeah, I mean, on the other side of the second course though, then I definitely want to open it up for more suggestions on what you want for workshops and live hacks, more participation, just all those ideas. That's the stuff I'm excited to explore next. But for me, the second course, it's that big project that like I gotta focus on this. I gotta get it done right, make it good. So, guarantee you that is what I'm fully focused on here. But yes, nonetheless, thank you again for joining. Another one in the books. This is the 6th week in a row we've done these, so that is pretty cool. And yeah, we're just gonna keep building. We're gonna keep stacking commits. So stick around. I'll be here again next Saturday. And then, as always, come say what's up in the Discord, in the PlebDevs community Discord. So thanks again, and I'll sign off here.